Welcome to another C2 Proficiency ESL-lounge reading lesson video. Today we will be reading 4 perspectives on the future of the university to understand the complex arguments surrounding this vital institution. Let's begin with some vocabulary. Liminal, relating to a transitional stage of a process, or occupying a position at a boundary or threshold. Crucible, a situation of severe testing, in which different elements interact to create something new. Atomized, separated or broken down into isolated individuals or fragments. Precipitated, caused an event, typically undesirable, to happen sooner than expected. Pedagogical, relating to the theory and practice of teaching. Anachronism, a thing belonging to a period other than that in which it exists, especially one that is conspicuously old-fashioned. Filtration, the action of processing or assessing a large amount of information to select only what is important. Myopic, lacking imagination, foresight, or intellectual insight, short-sighted. Iteration, a new version or repetition of a process or utterance. Transient, lasting only for a short time, impermanent. Flux, the state of continuous change, passage, or movement. Resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. Toughness or adaptability. Great, now you know the key words. Let's read the texts. You are going to read 4 academic arguments about the crisis facing the traditional university. Read them carefully to understand each writer's position. Afterwards, you will answer 10 questions to check your interpretation of each argument. Okay, let's start with text A. Professor Eva Rostova, sociologist. The university is caught in a tragic paradox. Its most unquantifiable value has always been its function as a liminal space, a protected environment where young adults can mature socially and intellectually. It is a crucible for identity, separate from the pressures of both home and workplace. However, the hyperinflation of tuition fees has systematically dismantled this. The student is no longer an apprentice citizen but an indebted consumer, and the university experience has become an economic transaction measured by graduate salaries. This forces students into a state of perpetual risk aversion, choosing safe, marketable subjects over intellectual curiosity. This transactional mindset creates anxiety, undermining the very conditions of intellectual and social exploration. Furthermore, the push towards technologically driven, atomized learning models, while framed as progress, only serves to accelerate this erosion of community. It substitutes sterile information delivery for the complex, often messy, but essential process of learning to think and live amongst others. True higher education must be defended as a social good, not a private investment. To abandon its civic mission in favor of producing mere economic units would be an irreversible cultural loss. End of text A. Let's continue. Dr. Ben Carter, economist. We must be unsentimental in our analysis. For decades, the university's implicit social contract has been one of guaranteed upward mobility in exchange for time and significant financial investment. That contract is now broken for a vast number of graduates. The core issue is an indefensible return on investment, a situation precipitated by a deep misalignment between curricula and the evolving demands of the global economy. To speak of intangible social benefits is a luxury we can no longer afford when student debt is at a crisis point. Appeals to a more romantic, bygone era of scholarly leisure are not only unhelpful but frankly insulting to those shackled by such colossal debt. The solution is twofold. Firstly, a radical reshaping of what is taught, guided by clear economic need. Academics must see themselves less as pure researchers and more as agile curators of knowledge, constantly adapting their offerings to maintain relevance. Secondly, we must aggressively leverage technology, particularly AI-driven pedagogical systems, not primarily to alter teaching methods, but to drastically reduce the cost of delivery. The goal of technology should be to make a university education, once again, a justifiable and prudent financial decision for the majority, not a ruinous gamble. End of text B. Let's continue. Dr. Chloe Marcus, educational theorist. The debate is frustratingly circular because it rarely addresses the fundamental flaw. The core pedagogical model of the university is a pre-internet anachronism. We still largely rely on the lecture, a one-to-many information delivery system that technology has rendered utterly obsolete. It is a relic from a time of information scarcity, fundamentally unsuited to an age of information abundance where the key skill is not reception, but critical filtration. Much of the current use of technology in universities is a clumsy, superficial overlay, a bolting on of digital tools to an analog framework. This is why the high cost feels so unjustifiable. We are charging premium prices for an outdated and inefficient mode of instruction. The true promise of technology is not to replace the campus, but to liberate it. By using tech for what it does best, delivering information, we can free up precious face-to-face time for what humans do best: mentorship, debate, and collaborative discovery. A modern university should be a dynamic workshop for the mind, not a passive auditorium. In this reimagined space, the professor acts not as a sage on the stage, but as a guide on the side, facilitating discovery rather than dictating facts. End of text C. Let's continue. Professor Julian Vance, historian. To declare the university in a unique terminal crisis is to demonstrate a startling lack of historical perspective. The university has, in fact, always been in crisis, and its history is one of continuous, often painful adaptation. It has evolved from a clerical training institution to a secular center of humanist inquiry, and from an elite finishing school to a mass engine of industrial research. Each transition was accompanied by predictable prophecies of doom. The invention of the printing press, for instance, was seen by many at the time as an existential threat that would render the residential scholarly community redundant. The current anxieties surrounding cost, technology, and purpose are merely the latest iteration of this recurring pattern. What the more myopic critiques fail to grasp is that the university's core value lies not in any single, fixed function, be it social, economic, or pedagogical, but in its institutional resilience. It is our society's most effective mechanism for preserving, interrogating, and transmitting complex knowledge across generations. The specific delivery mechanism for knowledge will always be in flux. The university's unique and irreplaceable role is to ensure the integrity of the knowledge itself. Okay, time for a few questions to check your understanding. Question 1. Which writer suggests that historical precedent indicates that major technological shifts ultimately strengthen the academic world rather than destroy it? Pause the video now to think about your answer. The correct answer is D. Professor Julian Vance. This is inferred from his historical analogy, where he states that the printing press, initially seen as an existential threat, ultimately forced the academic world to adapt and evolve. Question 2. Which writer fears that the current financial pressures are corrupting the university's essential, non-academic function? Pause the video now to think about your answer. The correct answer is A. Professor Eva Rostova. The text argues that the hyperinflation of tuition fees has systematically dismantled the university's role as a crucible for identity, which is its key non-academic function. Question 3. Which writer suggests that the university is failing to deliver a promised and tangible benefit in exchange for its high price? Pause the video now to think about your answer. The correct answer is B. Dr. Ben Carter. The text refers to the university's promise of upward mobility as a social contract, and then states that for many graduates, that contract is now broken. Question 4. Which writer criticizes the very methods of teaching as being fundamentally outdated for the modern world? Pause the video now to think about your answer. The correct answer is C. Dr. Chloe Marcus. The text argues that the core pedagogical model of the university is a pre-internet anachronism, with pedagogical model referring to teaching methods. Question 5. Which writer views technology not primarily as a pedagogical tool, but as a means to solve a financial problem? Pause the video now to think about your answer. The correct answer is B. Dr. Ben Carter. The text explicitly states that technology should be used not primarily to alter teaching methods, but to drastically reduce the cost of delivery. Question 6. Which writer argues that the university's true purpose is something that cannot be measured in purely economic terms? Pause the video now to think about your answer. The correct answer is A. Professor Eva Rostova. The text makes this argument by stating that higher education must be defended as a social good, not a private investment, which is a non-economic purpose. Question 7. Which writer believes technology's primary value is in enhancing, rather than replacing, the core human elements of education? Pause the video now to think about your answer. The correct answer is C. Dr. Chloe Marcus. The text argues that the promise of technology is not to replace the campus, but to liberate it, so that humans can focus on mentorship, debate, and collaborative discovery. Question 8. Which writer views the concerns of the other commentators as a form of short-sighted panic? Pause the video now to think about your answer. The correct answer is D. Professor Julian Vance. The text refers to what the more myopic critiques fail to grasp, with myopic meaning short-sighted, and implying the concerns are a form of panic. Question 9. Which writer suggests that a focus on individual student growth overlooks the institution's broader, long-term role in society? Pause the video now to think about your answer. The correct answer is D. Professor Julian Vance. The text makes this point by arguing that the university's true role is preserving, interrogating, and transmitting complex knowledge across generations, a broader role than individual growth. Question 10. Which writer suggests that the current model is failing students by providing a poor quality of instruction for the price it charges? Pause the video now to think about your answer. The correct answer is C. Dr. Chloe Marcus. The text argues this is why the cost feels unjustifiable, because we are charging premium prices for an outdated and inefficient mode of instruction. Let's quickly summarize the lesson. On this screen you can review the main points of the text and the key vocabulary. Finally, here are a few discussion questions. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching this ESL Lounge video. Don't forget to subscribe for more lessons, and we'll see you in the next one.